Hi folks, I want to take a few minutes to talk about the definition of information architecture. For the most part, all the essays were very good about this topic and really referenced the readings well. A few people decided to look at the Wiki definition, Wikipedia definition, and which, Wikipedia is not a bad place to start, but it certainly is not the end all and can be inaccurate and misleading. And the information architecture definition, I'd say, certainly needs help. Um, it says here, and some people quoted this: information architecture is the art and science of organizing and labeling websites, internets, and online communities and software to support usability. And it gets this definition from, and I'll click it here, this page from the Information Architecture Institute, and here it is. So what's wrong with that definition, or why don't I like it? Well, first of all, I think the way it's worded is really kind of strange or awkward. Um, the art and science of organizing and labeling websites, internets, and online communities and so forth. Well, what information architects don't do is they don't label websites, whole websites or internets. They label components within a website. They label the content, they label the artifacts, the assets, whatever, within a website or within an intranet. First of all, an intranet is just another portion of a website, so it's kind of redundant. Online communities, are also, it's sort of, this is very sort of general um, and not specific enough. And it talks about organizing and labeling the software to support usability. And so you don't really organize and label the software. So it's kind of strange. And then it's to support usability. Well, you could say that doing information architecture and labeling and managing content in a hierarchy is important for good usability, but doesn't mean that's the only reason you do it. It's not an ends to a means. It's a practice that can be used in a variety of ways. So it's kind of a strange definition. If I go back to here, I would look at, and what's interesting about on Wiki here is that it says that this article needs additional citations for verification. And so please help by adding citations to reliable sources. It's not very long. This definition here sort of restates things redundantly. I think it needs work, and I think people in this class can make this a lot better based on the readings and some other research. For example, if we look at from the Style Guide by Lynch and Horton, this right here, this opening paragraph and these 4 bullets, they really do a much better job in the definition. And I would challenge someone from the class to sign up at Wiki, go to that page, and redo it. Now, the important thing about doing Wiki and having the change hold is that it is well cited and well supported, and no one would question the Web Style Guide in its 3rd edition as a good reliable source, given how popular this book is, both the printed and the online version. So if someone wants to take a stab at this and change it and then blog about making the change or about this process for the the community site, that'd be great. I think this definition really needs to be worked on. I think it's incomplete. I think it's narrow. It doesn't talk about the practice of it at all as somebody that manages content or into hierarchies or into systems of understanding how it works. The goal is to make the information more accessible, but that is not, that's sort of a byproduct of the practice of it. And that when you organize information, you can do information architecture on and represent bad architecture. In other words, or you can represent a bad organization of content. In other words, that's the exercise, and then you could stop there, and someone could say, "Well, we need to do a better job," and that could be the end of the project. It didn't necessarily support good usability. It didn't necessarily support the new design or development. It just was an exercise to identify what is the architecture, how is the information being put together in a particular place, and it could show a sitemap, which will show poor organization, and that could be a goal in itself. Back on the AI Institute's definition, and this is where some people got confused by the role of the information architecture in the process of developing sites or whatever. It says here down here that best practices in information architecture support the development of interfaces that facilitate the flow of useful and relevant information to the user. Now, it's not a bad statement, but the key thing is that the IA supports the development. Okay, it's not the development; it's part of a process, and that very often information architecture artifacts like a sitemap or whatever would be handed over to a development team, or the role of the project manager or whoever's doing the work would change to say, okay, I've got my architecture. Now, what am I going to do with that? What kind of interface will I develop? Based on that, it will create the best user experience. Sometimes that can be done innately. I've done sites where it's a small site, it's a small amount of content, and I just think about the architecture of the information, or I can do even like a wireframe and kind of organize it that way. But at some point, you have your content, you have its organization, and then you have to do something with it. It's not Information architecture is not the practice of developing interfaces. It supports that process. It's one step in the way to it. In the same sense, using the house building metaphor, the architect develops blueprints to support the creation of a house. The architect could take those blueprints and build the house, but the blueprints are not done after the house is built. Although I must say, in information architecture, very often we reverse engineer sites to see where the problems are. You look at a site and you see that there's issues, somehow it's not working, the content seems lost, seems buried. Oh, let's do an evaluation to see where it is. So in some sense, that's where information architecture is very different than architecture for buildings, is that you can do it after the fact, after something's put together in a poor way, in order to see what's going on. I've never met an architect who was asked to go in and draw a set of plans for a house. Well, I take that all back. If you do a redesign, if you do a renovation of a house, you need to draw plans of the existing structure. And very often those plans could very well indicate what's wrong with the structure, the same way a sitemap would. But sometimes you just walk into a house and you know what's wrong. Same thing with the website. You can just open the website and you know what's wrong. It's not like a big mystery. But with sites, enterprise level sites, which may be thousands of pages, at some point you've got to do a plan, you've got to do a map to see what's going on, and then decide what to do with that. Anyways, so that's my bit, my diatribe going off on Wiki, and this what I think is a poor definition. I'd love for someone in the class to take a stab at redoing this, and let me know if you do the re-edit. I'd love to look at it. With memory, you have to include a citation. I think using the Lynch Horton one would be a fabulous one to put in there, so I think this is much better. I would not necessarily take out what's in there from what is cited by from the Information Architecture Institute, but it's another form. You could say that, and I'll finish up now. You could say that the I Institute says it is, but Lynch Horton say it's this, that kind of thing. So anyways, if you try to do that, let me know. Have fun, and thanks for listening. And that's my bit on information architecture. Take care.